Hi! In the first session on this course, we're going to focus on dictation of rhythms in simple time. And my theory on developing skills in oral dictation is to try and focus on one element at a time rather than to take on too many things and feel defeated that you're trying to do melody and rhythm and chords all in one go. So forgive me if this is straightforward to some people watching the film. Hopefully it will be useful reinforcement of dealing with rhythm for those who feel confident about this, and for those who don't, it's very important groundwork before we develop our skills further. So in this film, we're going to be dealing with rhythms in simple time. Now, just to be clear what we mean by that, this is time signatures that either have 2 as the top number, or 3 as the top number, or 4 as the top number. So we may be in 2/4 or 2/2 or 2/8, or we might be in 3/4, 3/8, 3/2, 4/4, 4/2, 4/8, and so on. So these are rhythms in simple time, and we'll come on to compound time in the next film. And we're going to begin just by thinking about 3 very simple rhythms. And here are the ingredients we're going to look at. The first is the semi-breve, or the whole note, that's worth 4 beats. Then we're going to be including the minim, or the half note, that's worth 2 beats. And then we're going to be dealing with the crotchet, or the quarter note, that's worth 1 beat. When I say it's worth 4 beats or 2 beats or 1 beat, I'm assuming that we're counting crotchet beats, which we will be for the time being. Obviously, if you're counting minim beats, in other words, if 2 is the lower number, then that will be 2 minim beats or 1 minim beat or half a minim beat. But for the time being, we're counting crotchet beats or quarter note beats, and so all of our rhythms will relate to what I've just put on the board. Now, it's one thing to know the theory of what we've just explored, to know how many beats are on each note. It's another thing to deal with listening to a rhythm and working out what the note values might be. And I think the best way of doing this is to count your way through a bar and ask yourself what is happening on every single beat and what is happening maybe between the beats or within the beats. So for example, if I've got a beat that does this, and I play 1, 2, 3, 4, well, you can hear there that I've got 4 crotchets or 4 quarter notes, because I've got 1 note on beat 1, another note on beat 2, another note on beat 3, another note on beat 4. If I were to play this rhythm, 1, 2, 3, 4, you can hear I've got 1 note that starts on beat 1 that's still playing on beat 2. And then I've got another note that starts on beat 3 and is still playing on beat 4. So in that case, I must have 2 minims or 2 half notes in the bar. So you're asking yourself, where does this note begin? So in that case, the first note starts on beat 1. Where does the next note come? Well, we don't get a second note until beat 3. So the first note must be taking all of beat 1 and all of beat 2. The second note starts on beat 3, takes up all of beat 3 and all of beat 4. If I were to play this rhythm, 1, 2, 3, 4, what you can hear is that we've got a note on beat 1, we've got a second note that comes in the second half of beat 1, then a new note on beat 2, another note in the second half of beat 2, and so on, because it does the same thing on beats 3 and 4. So what am I doing there? I've got 2 notes inside each beat, and those 2 notes are of an even length. You can hear that they're all the same length. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I must be filling up my bar with quavers or eighth notes. And the fact that those notes are even tells me that the first one's a quaver, the second one's a quaver. I haven't got the first one slightly longer than the second one, or vice versa. Because they're even, I can hear that the beat is equally divided. And one thing that can help me with the division of beats is to count a little and between each beat. So instead of just counting 1, 2, 3, 4, I can count 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Can you see that by counting the little and between the beats is that the and is subdividing the beat for me. It's dividing the beat in two, isn't it? So that actually if I count 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, I'm counting the quavers or the eighth notes. Now listen to that example again with me doing that. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. That confirms that I'm playing quavers or eighth notes because I've got the first note on 1, the second note exactly on and after 1, the next note on 2, the next note on the and after 2, and so on for the rest of the bar. Now, of course, life may be a little bit more complicated than this because I may have a mixture of rhythms inside a bar. So I might have a crotchet followed by a minim, followed by a couple of quavers. That's fine, but it's still the same task, thinking what happens on beat 1, what happens on beat 2, what happens on beat 3, what happens on beat 4. Do I hear a single note that fills up all of one beat? Do I hear 2 or more notes inside a beat? Do I hear a note that actually covers more than one beat? And that will help me to determine what the value of that note is. So as I say, we're going to begin by trying to deal with some rhythms that just involve the semibreve or the whole note, the minim or the half note, the crotchet or the quarter note. So the semibreve's got 4 beats, the minim's got 2 beats, the crotchet's got 1 beat. And the idea is to have a pencil in hand. I think it's much safer to do this in pencil than in pen. Quite a good idea to have a rubber handy as well, because you'll find yourself repairing things as you go. And as you hear the rhythm, start by trying to put a dot on the page for every note that you hear. So every new note that you hear, put a dot on the page. And then as you live with it, you might be able to work out that, well, this dot covers the whole of beat 1, so that must be a crotchet. Then I seem to have 2 notes inside beat 2, so you could turn those into 2 quavers to get the idea. So you can begin to think, how many notes did I hear inside each beat? Or did I hear a note that covered more than 1 beat? So you might think, well, if it's covered 2 beats, it must be a minim. And you can begin to shape your dots into the specific rhythm in hand. So we're going to start with some very simple rhythms and see how we get on. So let me tell you that the first rhythm we're going to do is in 4/4 time. So if you give yourself a time signature of 4/4, that's telling us that we're expecting to hear 4 crotchet beats in each bar. And I'm going to count in a bar, and then I'm going to play a rhythm that lasts for 2 bars, and just see if you can write it down. So here's 4 for nothing. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now hopefully that will not have caused too much bother. But let me give it to you one more time. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now hopefully you can hear that actually all that was happening in that was that I was playing a note on every single beat. So if I've got a 4/4 time signature, I should have written 1, 2, 3, 4, then a bar line, 1, 2, 3, 4. And if that's the end of the piece, of course, it should attract a double bar line. Okay, now just in case that didn't quite come right for you, Let's now play it again and follow this. So 4 for nothing. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So hopefully now you can see it, it's even clearer, because what I'm doing is I'm playing a note on each beat of the bar, and that note is lasting for the entire beat in each case. So that one is entirely crotchets or quarter notes. So there's our first experience of rhythmic dictation in simple time. Now obviously this is going to get progressively harder, and if at any point during this film you start to get lost, you may just want to rewind the film and see where it is that you come off the rails and build your confidence from that point. You'll be able to move forwards again. Okay, here comes another rhythm, and it's still in the same time signature. So we're going to be in 4/4 time, and again this rhythm is going to be 2 bars long. So see if you can write this one down, and I'm going to count a bar in, and then I'll keep counting so you can kind of hear where these beats come in relation to the notes that you're writing. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, let me play that one again and see how you get on just tidying up what you've written. 4 for nothing. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, at any time you want more thinking time, you can pause the film and then come back to me when you're ready, because you may just want to live with that for a while. One of the skills that's useful when you're dealing with oral dictation is to try and develop your memory skills, because if you can remember that rhythm, you can replay it in your mind between the official playings, if you like. Now let's have a think about what happened in that example. The first note started on beat 1, it took up all of beat 1, and it took up all of beat 2. So it must be a minim or a half note. So there's the first note, because it starts on beat 1 and it's still sounding on beat 2. Then we have a new note that begins on beat 3 and continues all the way through beat 4. So you can see now why the first bar contains 2 minims or 2 half notes. We've now had 4 beats, so we need a bar line. This is another thing, of course, you have to think about with oral dictation dealing with rhythm. If there are 4 beats in the bar and you've had 4 beats, well, we're going to need a bar line, aren't we? In the second bar, things move a bit more quickly, because we hear a note on beat 1 and then we hear another note on beat 2. Well, if the first note covers all of beat 1, it must be a crotchet or a quarter note. And then we've got another note on beat 2, which again covers the whole of beat 2. So there we are, another crotchet or another quarter note for beat 2. Then we hear another note on beat 3 that covers all of beat 3 and beat 4 as well. So that must be another minim or a half note. So that starts on 3 and it's still sounding for 4. And that brings us to the end of our second bar. If that's the end of the piece, there's a double bar line to signify that. So you can see by relating to the beats how this ticks. Let me play this rhythm again and sort of point to it on the board. So 4 for nothing. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now I hope that makes sense, and I hope you're beginning to see what I'm talking about in terms of the technique for dealing with this. It's one thing to know that a note is worth 2 beats or 1 beat or 4 beats in theory. It's another thing to relate it to a rhythm, because when you're relating it to a rhythm, you're really thinking, what happens on beat 1? What happens on beat 2? What happens on beat 3? So does something happen on the beat? Does something last for more than 1 beat? Do we hear two or more things happening inside a beat. And then we can build up this picture in relation to the beats. And that should get you to a point where you can identify a rhythm. Okay, well, let's keep the practice rolling. And we're on to the third example now. And just for the time being, I'm going to stay with 4/4. Of course, you can call it 4/4, or you can write C, because C means common time. Because 4/4 is the most common time, it's known as common time. So if you want to write a C instead of 4/4, that's absolutely fine. Okay, so here comes our third example. I'll count 4 for nothing again. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, hopefully you've got 4 dots on your page because we actually heard 4 notes in that exercise. You may also have developed the capacity to remember what that rhythm was, which would be really useful. And hopefully you're starting to think about how each of those 4 notes relates to the 4 beats of a bar, 2 bars worth of music. So how are those 4 notes spread across 2 bars of music? Some notes are quite long, some notes relatively short. Let's listen to it again. And if you've got it, you can double check. And if you haven't quite got it yet, it's a second chance just to get there. 4 for nothing. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, let's have a think about what was going on there. Well, in the first bar, we heard a note that began on bar 1, on beat 1, but it was a long note, wasn't it? So you can always start by just writing a whole note or a semi-brief, because you know it's long. You can change your mind about the length of that in due course. But have a think, how many beats did we hold on to that first note for? 1, 2, 3, 4. So in fact, it covered all 4 beats of the first bar, didn't it? So it started on 1, and we held on to it for 2, for 3, and for 4. And there goes your bar line, because that's the whole of the first bar. Okay, now in the second bar, things move a bit quicker, don't they? So we've got one of our 4 notes taking up the whole of bar 1. The other 3 notes all fit into bar 2. And bar 2 was this: 1, 2, 3, 4. So what's happening there? We've got one note that starts on beat 1, that takes up beat 1, but then we hear a new note on beat 2. So let's just do that for now and call that beat 2. How long did that note last? Well, it took up all of beat 2 and it took up all of beat 3. So it takes up 2 beats in the bar. And then we had another note that just crept in on beat 4. And if that's the end, there's our customary double bar line. Okay, now I wonder if that's what you got. If it isn't, don't worry at all, but you might compare what you've got with that so you can begin to see where something might have gone wrong. And if you did get that, congratulations, because we're starting to hot things up already. Let me play this in the light of what we've got on the board so you can actually see and hear this rhythm connecting with these beats. Okay, so I'll count 4 for nothing. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is beginning to develop the technique of relating new sounds to beats, so we know exactly what's going on inside a bar. Okay, well, we're going to stick with 4/4 for now, so you can put another 4/4 or a C. And this time we're going to expand the length of things a little bit. So in this example, there will be 4 bars. Okay, I'll count 4 for nothing. See how you get on with this. So 4 bars. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Pause the film if you want a bit more time, and then come back to me and I'll play it another time. 4 for nothing. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, hopefully you've got a rhythm down on paper, and if it's right, that's great, and if it isn't, don't worry, because you'll learn from what's gone wrong where you need to rethink things. There are different ways of going about this, but I think the idea of plotting a dot on the page for every note you hear at least means that you end up with the right number of notes on the page. So if you've ended up with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 notes in this case, then you've got the right number of notes. You can then determine what the value of each of those notes might be. And again, if you can begin to develop memory skills as well, so that you can replay that rhythm in your own mind, even if you don't remember all of it, you might just remember how it started, or you might remember how it finished. That's quite useful. And when you're doing oral dictation, you don't always want to work from A to Z, from the beginning to the end, because you may just think, well, I know what happened on the last note. And if you know that, well, you can commit to that. When you get the last note, you might then just think, oh, actually, I think I know what happened on the note before the last note. So sometimes you do a combination of working forwards and working backwards in this game. Anyway, I will not hold you in suspense any longer, but here is what you should have written. We started like this, and then we filled up the first bar like this, which means that we've now arrived at a bar line. And then we had a long note that filled up all of the second bar. So that's what that's about. Then we had this in the third bar. So another bar line. And then the fourth bar, one note that filled the whole bar again. And there's your double bar line to finish. You may have decided to blank out 4 bars from the outset, and that's certainly one way of doing this. If you know there are 4 bars, just to be able to have 4 blank bars and then work out how you're filling them. On the other hand, sometimes when you're just kind of plotting notes in the first instance, you're not quite sure how those notes relate to the bar lines. So I think sometimes it's a better idea to store the idea that you've got 4 bars, but maybe to put the bar lines in somewhere further down the line. It's just a thought. Let's see if we can now calculate where the beats fit into this. So the first note started on beat 1, it lasted through beat 2, a new note for beat 3, a new note for beat 4. Second bar, we have a note that begins on beat 1 and it just carries on for the entire bar. So it must be that. Third bar, we have a note on beat 1, a new note on beat 2, a new note on beat 3, which lasts through beat 4. And then in the last bar, we've got a note that's taking up the whole of the bar. So that's the reasoning behind how you would have got to that result. Let me play it in the light of you being able to see it and see if you can relate this rhythm to these beats. 4 for nothing. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And of course, if you want to hear any of these complete playings again, just rewind the film as many times as you want to and really count through in the way that I've been counting out the beats and really see how these rhythms fit into these beats. And you should get increasingly confident with dealing with that. One more element I'm going to introduce before we leave this section, and it is that sometimes in rhythm we've got to deal with triplets. You know, when you get a group of notes like this. And they have a little 3 over the top. Now, if you're not sure about triplets, think of it this way. It's like the supermarket offer, 3 for the price of 2. So you say, I've got 3 quavers, but they've got to happen in the time that it normally takes to play or to sing 2 quavers. So 3 for the price of 2, 2 quavers. So if that's the same as this, 2 quavers or 2/8 notes, it means it's the same as a crotchet or a quarter note. So quaver triplets the same as 2, 3 for the price of 2, which is one of those. So in other words, you've got to have 3 notes that are evenly distributed across one of these. Now you have to be careful that you don't confuse this with this or with this. Because in each of these cases, you've got 3 notes inside a beat. We've met these two, haven't we? So if we start with those where we've got 1 and this one that goes 1 and, you see those ands really tell you whether you've got 2 notes in 1 followed by 1 note on and, or whether you've got 1 note on 1 and 2 notes on and. But if you have this triplet rhythm, you won't hear notes that are longer and shorter. You'll hear notes that are of equal length. 1, like that. So if I give you a series of triplets, 1, 2, 3, 4, you can hear you've got equal length notes. If I give you a series of these, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, you can hear it's not the same as this. There are 3 notes, but they're distributed differently. Or if I give you a bar of this, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. It's not the same as 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's what you've got to decide. If you hear 3 notes inside a beat, are they evenly distributed? In which case, they must be a triplet. Or have we got 1 long, 2 short? Or have we got 2 short, 1 long? So you're entirely sure about what the difference might be between those rhythms. Okay, so we're going to do a couple of rhythms to finish that involve the triplet. So you'll need 2 bars of 4/4 for this one, and let's see how you get on if I count a bar for nothing. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Pause if you want to. Come back for a second playing. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Rerun that if you want to. Join me when you're ready to see the answer. We had a note on beat 1 that took up all of beat 1. Inside beat 2, we heard 3 notes. They started on number 2. Were they evenly distributed, or did we hear 1 and 2 short, or 2 short, 1 longer? They were evenly distributed, so they must be a triplet. 3 for the price of 2, so we've got 3 quavers in the time of 2 quavers. Well, that's in the time of 1 crotchet. So it's all fitting evenly inside the second beat. Then to keep life simple, we had a note that took up beat 3, and we had another note that took up beat 4. So they must be those. There's the bar line. Start of the next bar is interesting because again we heard 3 notes inside beat 1. But you might have heard that this first one came on 1, the second one came on and, so we had kind of long, short, short. So that's not a triplet because they're not evenly distributed. So this time we've got this rhythm that we've been working with earlier on. On the second beat, we also had 3 notes, but this time they were evenly distributed across the second beat. So it started on 2 and we had an even spread of 3 notes across the second beat. So they're triplets. And we finished up with a note that started on beat 3 and continued through beat 4. So hopefully you can begin to see and hear the difference between triplets and other groups of 3 notes inside a beat. This is how it goes. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2, 3, 4. And you can hear the difference between these rhythms, can't you? One nuisance of the triplet is it's quite awkward to deal with the ands, because if you count ands, you've got to go 2 and 3. You know, it's a bit awkward to fit it in. So when you're going to get triplets, you might want to abandon those ands, just to be clear about that. But if you're having trouble with the ands and you're hearing 3 notes inside a beat, that's another indicator that you might be listening to triplets. Now, the very last one is in 3/4 time, and let's go for this straight away, see how we get on. You need 2 bars here. I'll count a bar for nothing. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Pause if you want to. Come back for the second playing. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Pause if you want to. Rerun as many times as you want to. And I'm going to give you the answer. So we've just got completion on this whole area. And here it is. You'll hear this even distribution of the third beat into that triplet. And then in the next bar, you'll have heard an even distribution of beat 1 into 4. So we've moved from a triplet there to a group of 4 semiquavers or 4/16 notes. And then we've heard this rhythm on the second beat. So we've heard 3 notes on the second beat, but they're not evenly distributed because we've got 2 quick and 1 slow. And then we've finished up on that. So that's how that rhythm should have been. 1 and 2, 3, 1 and 2 and 3. So I hope that's been a really thorough and useful exploration of rhythms in simple time. When you join us next, we'll be talking about compound time rhythms.